So we'll see if they get another battleground that works out well for them. Gale Force eSports choosing first pick.
I love it.
And oh my goodness.
It's awesome.
Even in Death has chosen to take Gale Force to Braxis holdout.
Gale Force chose to go to Tomb, and then Even in Death chooses to go to Braxis, which is just, again, one of those, this is a little backwards. Braxis is supposed to be the Gale Force map, and you know, the other way around. Either way, we saw that why Even in Death is known to be able to play Tomb, so effectively playing it very well here. Suddenly, though, I expect this to be a blowout. Not only because the map, it's a snowbally map, one that you can really kind of be able to manipulate effectively. It's Gale Force's, you know, prime going to and territory, one that they feel without a doubt most comfortable. So I'm assuming that Gale Force can really kind of play the map properly the way that they do, and suddenly it's, oh, that's 100-0 Zerg Rush very early on with the 10 spike. That would be optimal for me, I feel.
Gale Force has drafted basically the same exact composition, now twice on Braxis holdout in Phase 2. We're talking Vola, and then either Ariel Brightwing or Tassadar Brightwing, Muradin, and Illidan. They have lost with it twice. So I think we'll see them shift out of that maybe with not having good results versus Freedom as well as Tempo on Braxis. But it's weird to see Gale Force have some losses on Braxis, especially because of their dominance for so long in Phase 1 there. Yeah,
it's kind of another one of those cases where it's Gale Force found something before everybody else managed to be able to find that, and then now it's kind of like everybody goes, well, you know, we figured it out, and Gale Force is no longer having that dominant success on a map like Braxis Holdout that they have been known to be kind of unstoppable on. But I do feel like a lot of their picks were kind of a smidge weaker as well. And that's just, that was mainly just a me thing. I felt like their picks were kind of more focused towards the old playstyle. Like when they busted it out originally, it was with the Zagara, right? And they kind of used the Muradin as the back choke, and everybody was just like, well, if we just stop you back channeling kind of our altars, nobody really cares too much about the lane presence that you had.
Let's talk about some of the players to keep an eye on throughout this series between Gale Force eSports as well as Even in Death. We have got Lutano versus K1 Pro, the two ranged players. K1 Pro, new to Gale Force eSports, but came in and immediately had a lot of success with heroes like Li Ming because of not only his synergy with his longtime friend and co-player with King Caffeine, but because he was back on the backline with Fan as well. But Lutano has also been doing pretty well in HGC.
I mean, especially looking at the hero damage, Lutano's keeping up with K1 Pro, and that in itself is a colossal feat. But the KDA and such a little bit more staggered here towards K1 Pro. What used to be one of the top players, no matter what team K1 Pro is actually on, he statistically is one of the highest performing ranged assassins in the entire North American scene. So it's not surprising to see that so high for him and low on the side of Lutano, who's very much new, and you know, the team's been struggling.
Yeah, and that's because he has generally low deaths and then high kills. So he knows when he should be putting in that hero damage and is very safe, reliable, dependable for his team, while also getting some takedowns, making some flashy plays, like some flanks of Jaina. We have the Tyrande, why not we get Jaina back in too?
I'm totally down. The Jaina I can support. She is very, very good. You know, she has the ability to provide a slow as starting as early as level 1. You have the ability to drop down the blizzard. There's a lot of really cool things that I feel like Jaina is just not given credit for in modern day. Everybody viewed her as such a wombo combo-centric hero.
Gale Force eSports doesn't want to deal with Zagara. The last time Even in Death played on Braxis Holdout, they did play with Zagara. We've seen, we've seen some interesting compositions come about on Braxis Holdout. In Korea, Cho'Gall Ariel has been a staple. Maybe not a staple, but it's been a thing. Blossom was able to win a game off of MVP Black because of it. And it is scary to deal with. It also seems improbious.
To be honest, I think Cho'Gall is a little undervalued in North America. You know, I don't know. I don't feel like he's the go-to, but
something I never thought I'd hear, or I thought I'd hear.
I know,
but I'm so happy to hear it.
It's like he's actually really hard to deal with. Granted, I feel like he's in the right type of composition type deal. One of the weird things about Cho'Gall is he's always in the meta when he's not in the meta. And what I mean by that is the minute he becomes meta, everything that is good against him will automatically rise in power. He has a lot of direct counters, too many to be able to deal with in a draft, which forces him to fall out of the meta. But then when you ignore him, suddenly synergies like Ariel, he comes back. He is because there's so many counters, he will never be at the top. So it's like one of these kind of like, he's underrated, but then eventually he gets valued at the way he should, but then everybody plays around him too well. He will always kind of cycle back. Cho'Gall always comes back home, you know?
There's actually an article written by Riley Jaffa on our website about Cho'Gall and why he's popped back up in significance in the Korean region. And it does say that most players are saying it's not so much the Cho'Gall as the Ariel. The fact that Gall has no mana, neither does Cho. You're just chucking out spells all the time. And it's a constant meter. You might as well, if we're talking batteries here, this is like a rechargeable battery that recharges from solar power while it's still being used at the same time.
With super nuclear energy behind it. Like, I mean, it's just
fusion.
Not enough energy is really what it kind of feels like.
You need 2 Ariels at that point just trying to keep it up with
I mean, it is. You got a battery. It's a legitimate 2 batteries in 1. I mean, that is essentially what it is. And, you know, the auto attack value of those heroes and the scaling to be able to make them kind of balanced and obviously not too far off amplifies the hope resourcing from Ariel overall. It makes a lot of sense. But it is synergistic, and that is why it comes in. And then that's why it will fall out, is because, again, things like Leoric and Tychus are not terrible, and a new Barak's Cocoon is pretty neat. And those are direct counters to the hero. So it's one of those, he'll be in and he'll be out. In the end, he'll never stay long. At least not until he gets extremely too powerful.
There's actually a Cho'Gall earlier today in Europe as well.
Yeah, on Tomb. I believe it was Zealots was the team running that, busting it out. What do we see for Gale Force here into the 2-3? It's a noob, and it's going to be the high Illidan prioritization. I like Illidan on a map like Braxis. I've been a huge fan. I feel like Illidan, I want to see more and more of him because I just like so much that he's so powerful against Dahaka. And Dahaka's neat in team fights, but I feel like he's no Illidan, you know? And especially with Task Rising, everything to me screams, this should be an Illidan meta, but it's surprisingly not. And I struggle a little bit at times to wonder like why that is the case. But either way, Gale Force is a team that's been playing him quite a bit more.
And it feels like even more and more, even into this series too. Whether that's simultaneously getting a hero that can function as a global, is good in a 1v1, is something that Michael Udall has been playing for a long time, and also is a denial away from even in death. There are several good reasons for Gale Force to play Illidan, but whether that continues on after this series remains to be seen.
Uther removed for even in death. Malfurion is what we see on the other side. And how did Malf become respected enough to get banned so consistently?
Stitches.
Right? I know, but I spent 3 weeks talking about like Malf, and I was just like, where is he at? And now teams are, he never sees play, but he gets banned out. That's another hero where I'm just like, how did, he's not only relevant, he's consistently seeing play. And before I was just like, I'm afraid to talk about him because I know nobody's going to pick him.
They will ban him, though.
They will ban him. It's so awesome to see that kind of fluctuation. But it's the Brightwing and the Rhaegar still sticking to the double support, not the one you'd assume, even though Ariel's a thing. Why don't you take Ariel? Name one reason you don't move to the Ariel there. You're afraid you don't want a hope target? You don't want to be stuck into going for a hope target. That has got to be the main reason. But you still need the double supporting. I'm just like, you got the blind, you know, post 13, it can help into the Illidan.
Could easily take Ariel here.
Yeah, they very much can. I mean, if this is going to be a Lunara Ariel transition.
Oh man, Ariel Vala too.
Yeah, it's just about anything you. The world's yours, Gale Force. Where would you like to take us? If a Murden's picked up, though, I'd be surprised. No longer a chance. She comes out again. Gale Force continuing to take risks.
And the final pick is Greymane for even in death. They'll have a Cursed Bullet once again to follow up after a hook. They have a lot of follow-up after a hook. A lot of burst with Chromie as well.
I'm thinking about the laning phases here. I need a minute. This is a bit harder of a math problem than I expected at first glance.
Gale Force has a couple of options. Could 1-4, but also could send Tassadar up with Illidan as well. Even in death.
Even in death wins both lanes.
Brightwing Greymane.
I'm pretty sure they win both lanes, no matter what the laning situation Gale Force provides. One thing that I tried to talk about quite a bit on the cast whenever we get the Lieutenant Morales and we get it matching into the Chromie Chromie just bodies Morales in terms of mana. She just can out-sustain Morales so bad. Like, you think Chromie is never going to officially kill anything. So Morales is like, I've got a heal beam. I've got a heal. Everybody eventually gets the heals. But you never consider the rate at which you lose mana. It's like Chromie's at 50% and Lieutenant Morales is at 0. That's a huge tool that they can try to abuse. The Tassadar you were talking about could be the thing that maybe mitigates that. But if he's babying the other lane, nope, that's not going to work out. So suddenly Morales is beginning to struggle. The stitches that Chromie, like, I'm not in love with even in Death's draft. I feel like I'm more just not satisfied with that of Gale Force eSports. But either way,
is it because of the Morales or because you can't look at Tass, Anub, Illidan, Vala and think I'm not satisfied because that's hella strong.
No, it is. A lot of it is the Morales, and then considering the map too, right? Because it is laning focused, then you have to consider the lane matchups. And it was like they were like, we want to take Illidan more of like a just because it's kind of fun type deal, rather than considering the laning circumstances they're going to have to deal with the Chromie so high onto the other side.
All right, well, let's see if Even in Death can win another game versus Gale Force eSports and tie up our series to send us to Game 5.
I mean, it's not 100%, but it's just, we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. It's just between the double supporting, the Stitches and Chromie as the anti-siege, and then Greymane holding its own, the only thing I'm considered, like, worried about is Illidan bodying his lane. Just absolutely ruining his lane. But as long as that does not happen, I don't see the Tassadar and the Vala putting that much pressure up into the front line unless Even in Death misses every single skill shot, like, consistently.
That means there's a lot on the shoulders of Frozen X. A little bit of shifting of the roles for Even in Death, putting Lutano, who we generally see as the range player for Even in Death, on Rhaegar. That's likely just who feels most confident when you look at those two supports. With Greymane as well, Homicidal generally plays another melee, so he's going to be forced into something else, and Greymane is a comfort for him in those types of situations. Frozen X closing things out for the entire draft, playing the Chromie.
So Even in Death here, they want to be reactive to the laning circumstances that Gale Force is going to volunteer towards. They want to wait until they see somebody show. So Mike Schoen displayed himself on top, and that's why you see the cycle. Everybody now switching position, getting back to where they want to be. There's the Stitches, there's the Chromie, the Brightwing to support it out, and the Rhaegar and the Greymane to make sure they just don't lose. So now, this is all on Frozen X. He needs to be hitting Akaface, or at least just hitting his skill shots off of cooldown. Like, it's all about his Q at this point in time. But it is very, very likely that if you are even at a 50% accuracy, just she's going to outscale the Morales.
Well, Gale Force's aggression has been able to force both of the well-taps for the two members up and top of Even in Death, so that bodes fairly well. There's a skill shot hitting, which does take away some of the mana of Akaface.
Homicidal, teleport from Brightwing going in. Mikey Doll trying to make it happen. The Q, not even necessary. Lutano finishing it out there with that Feral Lunge on in. And that is first blood over to Even in Death.
I'm going to keep Battery and Frozen X down in the bottom, having those three, the Illidan, or the Greymane, plus the double supporting up in the top lane against Gale Force eSports to pressure as much as they can while Illidan is gone, and it's just Tassadar to try to slow down Even in Death.
He's definitely not getting the pressure out here. Look at very little pressure going on to the front line. Akaface has only had to heal 2-3 times this entire bottom lane phase. So Gale Force gets a lot going on into the laning aspect of this. And now Mikey Doll, I'm more worried about the 2v2 now because Gale Force will win the bottom lane over time. So the teleport from Brightwing comes out again. Mikey Doll gets polymorphed. He goes down once more. But there was a battle on the other side. Won here by Gale Force. They got themselves a Chromie.
They got the counter kill on Chromie. Still Even in Death, being able to have the double support and Greymane consistently up in the top lane is trying to emulate the pressure that Gale Force is putting on here in the bottom lane. They've got to try to keep up. It's hard when you have a constant support with Vala who has that consistent damage, and she's starting to work on the Even. She's kind of pinned. She will take some damage.
Bronze Talons? Oh man, he needed to move up and try and get value out of that 4. That's a part of the reason why Chromie can be effective into this lane so early is because she gets her talent at level 2, and it's an auto attack, right? One Bronze Talon, even, just onto the Morales, and then suddenly she's like, oh, I have to question my own positioning. It's just the consistent pressure you want to put out there. And it's not happening, at least not yet here for Frozen X. Gale Force, with this downtime, has managed to be able to back out. They're going to start themselves the camp. We'll be able to lock it in. And Cap is just zoning off this bottom shrine.
I think that this is the first time that we have seen Dragon's Eye in North America. Frozen X is playing the Dragon's Eye. More standard build of Chromie in Europe. Really made an appearance when they're up against an Ariel, because you have the big burst follow-up after a temporal loop. In this case, there's a cleanse available for Gale Force eSports, so it won't necessarily be used in that way, but still can try to get the monstrous amount of damage that it does off of something like a time trap or a hook. It's pretty cool. I'm excited to see how it works.
Yeah, it is pretty neat. We'll see if he ends up getting bonus damage. Look at this 5-man collapse from Even in Death. Calf is going to go ahead and use his burrow charge away.
And they need to get on the bottom beacon as soon as possible because they were sacrificing that beacon. And then they need to move out and send somebody back up to the top because Illidan and Tassadar won't take this time to immediately start to push in against the structures in the top lane too. Gale Force eSports, you can see that they're starting to get just a slight lead over Even in Death.
Tano on an island, man. He goes out of Ghost Wolf form. Blind, just so much faith into how going in with that Brightwing every time up in that top lane. Now we're experiencing the disadvantage of bottom every time Brightwing commits outward. That's the one thing that, you know, Even in Death, though they are making things happen up on top, they are always losing something on bottom when they do so.
It's a really interesting level 4 talent choice for Homicidal's Greymane getting Thick Skin, because you get the 50 physical armor against 2 basic attacks, but you have several very fast auto attackers on Gale Force eSports side, and it's when you go into Worgen form, and you get that after you use Dark Flight.
Yeah, which is, yeah, that's a really good point. It's unlikely to gain a lot of value in this game. Most of the time, it'll just be Gonzo, but it may be better the case of the, you know, laning phase, and right now it's paying off. They are able to catch out King Caffeine.
Yeah, it helps out with the laning phase, and then later on, Mike.
Wow, that evasion. He was 1 auto attack away and was able to dodge that one. Now Battery goes down thanks to Fan. He was in hot pursuit, not cold retreat on that one.
That will be rewarded with a kill. Later on, Brightwing can give 50 physical armor at, and that is more for the duration of her shield instead of just stack. So that might be able to help on if they're trying to negate some of the damage in that way from Gale Force eSports. But for now, this game is close when you look at the kills, but Gale Force eSports is just waiting for their chance to open up this game, and that comes down to the fact that they are 84% against just the 42 of the beacons against Even in Death.
Yeah, it feels like a lot of this early laning has just been Gale Force out-rotating, doing what they've known best and what they've managed to learn over the, you know, past while, being the Braxis team of North America. But now, the big old Guardians, the crazy scary guys, and all the little Zerglings, they have made their way onto the battlefield. Gale Force is going to line up right behind them. Calf questioned if he wants to move in. There goes the Impale. No burrow charge follow-up. Illidan still soaking onto the side lane. He's not 10 yet, so there's no actual global here for the team like Gale Force eSports. Even in Death has the Brightwing, though, so they're okay for now. She's going to come up, aid Homicidal, but actually body blocking Battery, maybe enough to get him too low and in lethal range, but Gale Force was unable to capitalize.
Gale Force is just about to hit 10, and then if they want, they can bring in Illidan with a hunt on top of Even in Death. Even in Death are hoping to clear out the Zerg before they get to that point, but Gale Force has hit 10 and instantly picks up the hunt as well as the rest of their heroic abilities, just waiting on a new Barak, and it'll be the standard Cocoon. And Caffeine flanking off to the side. Illidan hunting in. We've got a hunt on top of Frozen X, who does get helped out with a helping hand. Barely is not going to get him out of range of the strafe of Fan, and 2 kills for Gale Force eSports as they hit 10.
That was such a beautiful force wall. I'm honestly amazed there was even a pixel to be able to run by on that, but now Mike has caught Lutano. He will end up falling here, and now with 3 members dead, it's going to be Gale Force picking themselves up this fort. With this, how much more can we make happen? The Guardian will be able to be stalled out if it's not cleared up too soon. The boss will be available, and with bottom fort already dead, there's no easy play available for Gale Force, but obviously with how much vision control they have, they can be looking to try and catch Even in Death off guard.
Yeah, Even in Death are playing the cleanup game for now, finally clearing out, and they do have their heroic abilities. Slight change up, having Go for the Throat. Maybe trying to make sure that they can get the kill once Chromie lands a big combo with her Sandblast and Dragon's Breath. They're hoping to get the fight in before they get too far behind. The Bloodlust has been used. It's a Bloodlust comp. They've got Greymane too. Lutano, the double dogs, trying to take out Michael Udall. Emerald One has been used too, but all of Gale Force Esports is disengaging.
Perfect disengage there. Now for the reinitiation, knowing that the Bloodlust is down, but the hunt onto Lutano was actually just a bait. Mike Udall gets immediately turned on and he falls. Now the Stitches hook, Battery pulling out Calf. He goes through and he actually found himself a trap halfway through time. He gets stalled. He does come out though, and Fan in that hot pursuit just flinging a bit more of that damage outward. Nobody gained another kill, but this is Even in Death showing signs of life still into this game. Yes, they're behind in the structures and they're struggling when it comes to the vision onto the map, but they, even when they, you know, pop the Bloodlust, normally a Bloodlust composition is if you have Bloodlust up, we can fight, and if you don't, you go, please, for the love of a higher power, do not start this team fight, because that is not going to be a very winnable one, and they in fact were successful there. It's good punishment against Mike.
Yeah, Dread, I want to know what you think about the Bloodlust, because the dog's out of the bag now. We have Bloodlust over Ancestral Healing. But really, when you look at the composition of Even in Death, maybe Ancestral Healing for go for the throat. Otherwise, just trying to make sure that they can get in and get out, jump into the fight at once. What do you think?
I feel like a lot of it kind of comes down to the idea, because they feel like with the Emerald Wind, with the Bile, and with the Slowing Sands, enough lockdown of like a territorial, hey, please stay on our side of the battlefield spells, that the Bloodlust might be enough to put them over the edge. But, you know, it is a bit weird. It's like there's a Chromie, you know, and not your auto attack go-to. Obviously, she'll feel pretty good with the Bronze Talons and being able to have that increased auto attack range, but it does feel a bit out of place.
Well, they only get the surprise of it once, the surprise factor of having Bloodlust. But yeah, that makes a lot of sense. They already have zoning between Slowing Sands and Emerald Wind, so if someone is caught, then having the ability to pop Bloodlust allows Greymane to go for the throat and hopefully get a kill off of it, get a reset even as well. Even in Death are down 13 talent tier, but they're hanging in here versus Gale Force Esports. It's a hard place to be in on a 2-lane battleground, because it takes, there's just less lanes overall for you to be able to soak up the experience and try to come back in the game. But they're at least trying to slow down Gale Force Esports from being able to get an instant 100% Zerg rush along with that 13.
Good force wall again here from the K1 Pro. That's like the 5th, man. It feels like every single one is just on point. Going to come off of cooldown once more. Brightwing yet to be able to move up here and join Even in Death. We always talk about the downside of having Brightwing as the global. She's not necessarily the greatest of clear, and you also wish you had your support, but Battery's going to move in there. We see the Bile drop. Fan is completely isolated. Luckily, Akape's made his way up. He's there with the heals. He'll keep him up, and the Strake just ripped through Lutano.
You could see exactly what Even in Death were trying to do by getting a Brightwing bomb, but Stitch just couldn't quite get into position. And thanks to all the mobility of K1 Pro and Fan, the Emerald Wind was essentially a waste for Even in Death. They were not able to get the isolation, the separation of Gale Force to separate out this strong Tassadar, Vala, and Lieutenant Morales composition from them. And this entire time, Gale Force Esports has had their eyes on the prize of a full Zerg rush that is now going to push along. And they've got a keep already opened up in the bottom. They still have the 13 advantage. So along with that Zerg rush, they're hoping to take out a keep.
I would be surprised if this is not a keep. What I'm looking for is, does Gale Force manage to get the 1 to 2 kills they need to end the game? They have an Illidan composition with the Tassadar, and, you know, very good isolation there coming out from the Cocoon. It's definitely possible they can end the game here. There goes the hook, the Cocoon drops, they got to test the waters, they're going to move in.
Udall diving in on top of Even in Death. They have Putrid Bile to try as best as they can to slow things down.
Zerg rush still up. Mike dashing over.
Oh
Battery.
No, Battery is going to get hunted on top of 2. Stitches is down. That's the first kill necessary for Gale Force Esports to take this game convincingly. The core is falling at 75%. There are still Bloodlust as well as Emerald Wind as possible heroic abilities to use. Lieutenant Morales has been taken out.
Mike Udall, the last man onto the core. The time trap actually re-aggroed the core onto King Caffeine, so Caff is going to be the one wearing that. That was very inconvenient, but I think it's not going to matter here. It's all about Mike. 17. I don't know if he's got it. He just burned his evasion. He's got 1 Q away, and that is going to stop that. 5%, 3%, 2. Mike luckily gets the job done. Gale Force Esports now takes the series 3-2-1.
even if they hadn't taken out the core there, they had done so much damage to the core that they could just wait until they get the opportune moment, force the hand somewhere, if even in death, somewhere else on the battleground, and then send Illidan in for the sweep up of the core.
Yeah, that was really well done there for Gale Force eSports, and then end up taking the series. You know, what I just worried happening here in the series is that I don't think this is going to be the case, but let's just look at once we're all done with phase 2 part 1, and Gale Force eSports looks at the Western Clash chances and they go, remember that one time we dropped a game to even in death because we drafted Toronto? Think about it. How bad would that feel? It might be that close. So much so that if I was them, I wouldn't have ever taken the risk. Like, I'm not going. I'm not taking the risk. I'm going to win the video game as effectively as I possibly can.
And that's why we saw Fnatic versus Team Dignitas. You know, no room for error, no messing around. Yes, they've qualified for the Western Clash, but they're also keeping their BlizzCon in their sights as well.
Yeah, it's really going to be, I don't even want to begin to speculate what we're going to experience post-Western Clash because where the standings are now and how dramatic that's going to be up until moving into BlizzCon. That will be a wild ride, but for now, Gale Force, again, with the front-loaded schedule that they had, it's kind of been smooth sailing for them after getting those major key victories, specifically against World 20, I feel like was the breaking point. That was win number 2.
Yeah, they were very fortunate that they did face World 20 earlier on.
Is it lucky? I don't know. Like, they got the win.
Definitely powered up since then.
Yes.
That was so early. That might have been their first series.
Week 1 or week 2, without a doubt.
In all of HGC. So, yes, everyone was dealing with these roster shuffles, and Gale Force was as well. And they had Fan at the mid-season brawl helping us out with the analysis. So, Gale Force didn't have everybody to be able to get the practice together, but they just happened to fall out a little bit better in being able to get their roster synergy online faster.
Yeah, the World 20 was up in week number 1, and then Tempo was in the week number 2. So, yeah, I agree that it is lucky because they got that overpowered. I just didn't want anybody at home to be like, you know, like, oh, they got lucky, they got the earlies. And it's like, well, technically everybody has to play everybody once. Like, there was no actual unfair advantage. It was just convenient that, you know, some of the teams were struggling starting at the very beginning and now have really come to find themselves.
Yeah, Gale Force eSports absolutely deserves where they're at, the victories that they had, and to go to the Western Clash too. And they are so close to doing that. They've only lost one series so far. That was to Team Freedom last week. And it was a close one. It was a very close series. Actually, it was just a 3-1, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a 3-1. It didn't even go to game number 5.
It was surprising. But then again, Gale Force had to play 2 different teams that weekend. And it's hard for anybody. It is hard for any team to have 2 strong opponents in a weekend.
Yeah, it is very difficult. But now we've got ourselves, well, I feel like what we're looking at now when it comes to overall standings is that the top half is going to be Freedom and Gale Force after today, very likely to be Western Clash representatives, still in contention. No Tomorrow and Tempo Storm. Am I correct, right? But both of those are, one of them has to knock out the other, and it's all depending on their results against next week and the remainder of this week.
Yeah, and if
I believe that's correct.
If I have who is left to play, Gale Force has Superstars yet to play.
Okay.
When we are looking at Tempo Storm, I believe that's Freedom. And then No Tomorrow would be Roll 20.
You are, I believe, correct on all 3.
A lot of not only important matches, but hype matches as well happening next weekend. It's a good time to be a Heroes fan, Dread.
Yeah, it's just sad that we got to build up to, you know, that moment, and then we got to crush a couple people's dreams. We get back to it, wait 2 weeks, and then, you know, we start the hype once more. It really does seem like it just takes 2 weeks where it's like, we get to learn, and now it's like, some teams might already be a little bit too far out, you know, to be able to recover, and they begin to make it desperate. But what I like the most about phase number 2 is it does feel like what we learned of phase number 1, because we've never done this format in competitive Heroes of the Storm, is we learned that every game matters a lot more than at first glance. When we looked at phase number 1, we were like, week 1, 2, maybe you can flex it out, then you got to be really serious, put on the big boy pants. But we quickly learned that it's like, it's not so much the case. You can't really let up anything starting as early as week number 1, and why those teams have maybe struggled and why others are succeeding now.
Yeah, every series matters and every game matters when you have a lot of teams as close as we currently have in North American HGC. Let's check in with Fan, one of our victors off of Gale Force eSports. Hey, Fan, congratulations. You guys were able to take out Even in Death. You did lose the one game, but talk to us about that game, specifically the Tyrande. What was up with that?
Yeah, so I guess we were feeling a little bit overconfident that game. We broke our curse of never winning, the first game in a series ever. And then we were kind of just already talking about what we would do if we would win and stuff. So when it came time for the draft, we're experimenting a little bit with the new Taranda, seeing if she has potential. It seemed like a good idea to try it out, but it ended up not working very well. The thing about Tassadar, Vala, Oriole, Illidan, these types of compositions is they're very unforgiving, and if you make a mistake in the early game, if you just give them the even fight, sometimes if you draft wrong, there's just no way to win the game anymore. So yeah, we were just kind of trying it out, got a little overconfident.
Yeah, it seemed at the end you guys were like, all right, let's just move on to the next game, and then you're able to close that out. But I also want to ask you about Cursed Hollow because you guys had some incredible decision-making, just very smooth, very clean. What have you guys been working on specifically that have led you to be able to play that way, and do you feel like you'll be able to carry that on into the Western Clash, potentially, if you're able to qualify?
I think this style of composition we played during Cursed Hollow is something that's very familiar to us, so it wasn't that hard for us to kind of just execute something. We've practiced that kind of composition a lot, and we all know what we're supposed to be doing. I think the main thing for us right now is we're still trying to integrate a lot of different things. Like, K1 used to be the drafter on B-Step, and I was the drafter on GFE, and we're both kind of pushing ideas around, stuff like that. And sometimes our drafts get a little mixed up because of it, and we're still working on our synergy. But for drafts like the Cursed Hollow one, that's very cookie cutter to us. We all know exactly what we're supposed to be doing, and yeah, it just went pretty smoothly.
Yeah, the classic Gale Force global game working out well for you guys. Dread, do you have any questions for Fan?
My only question is really just, I mean, you guys obviously pretty much expected to be the winners of the series, and other than the Taranda incident is what I'm going to call that. How did you guys feel about the games? Like the ones that went according to plan, were they as much as you want? Did you feel like you guys got the draft and the gameplay and you're satisfied with it, or did it feel like there was a little bit more? Just overall, what do you guys feel?
Personally, I think we played a little too passive game one. The other two games we won, I think we did pretty well. Game three, we had some unnecessary deaths, but yeah, I think the main thing is for our play, one of the main problems that I've noticed a lot is sometimes we're a little bit too passive. Sometimes I think we give, like, either we're not sure of what the enemy team is going to do and we don't push our advantages as hard as we need to, or we're just not exactly sure what to do at a moment in time. And it can be something as small as like 2 seconds of not shoving a lane out. But that kind of mistake repeated over time is going to be, it's going to be hard for us to become really good world contenders. So I think that's something that we're really working on. Like you mentioned in game two, we were always doing something like that's where we want to be. But yeah, in Sky Temple, that wasn't quite the case. So I think it's just more about working on game knowledge, working on making sure everyone knows what to do at all times. And if we can accomplish that, I think we have the mechanics and, the drafting and everything else to become a top team.
I feel like from our end, we very much agree with you as well. So
Yeah.
Keep going.
Thanks.
Well, Fan, congratulations again on your victory, and good luck versus Superstars next week. And the floor is yours now for some shout-outs.
Awesome. Yeah, shout-outs to you guys once again for casting Gillian Dread. You guys are always awesome. And shout-out to our sponsors, NVIDIA, MetaThreads, Gunners, and Twitch. Make sure to pick up a pair of Gunners if you guys don't have it. Twitch chat, they're pretty awesome. Key to winning. All
They
my
look
skills
good.
lie in these glasses. Do they? Thanks.
Yeah.
That's good. They're the Heroes of the Storm ones. Go get them, Twitch chat. Anyways, shout out to my teammates as well. You guys all know them. A lot of us stream. You can check me out at SC2 Fan TV, Michael at Michael Udall, and King Caffeine at King Caffeine. So check our streams out as well. Other than that, shout out to Courtney, our analyst, for always providing us data on the other teams and what they draft. And yeah, just shout out to the community. Shout out to Twitch chat. Thanks for cheering us on and watching the games.
That might be the smoothest shout-outs yet, Fan. Thank you very much. Congrats again.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Because he's well-versed in winning, am I right? Bam! No, yeah.
It's true.
Eventually you get used to it. I tell it's always about the text file, especially if you have to do it on a computer. You just keep it right below eye line, and then you go, oh, I'm supposed to remember these things. You can say hi to, and then you just look down and be like, Mike Udall at MikeUdall.com.
Yeah, but if you want to maintain eye contact, I'm letting you know you at home, you should check this stream out. You know what? You should also check out the schedule for tomorrow because we've got more Heroes of the Storm matches.